Hello everyone, our group is composed of members Megan Connor, Nora Dixon, Rachel Eckerling, Virali Juthani, Caitlin Muldoon, and Jane Nava, and we are presenting on the topic of occupational identity. Occupational identity is a composite sense of who one is and wishes to become as an occupational being generated from one's history of occupational participation. One's volition, habituation, and experience as a lived body are all integrated into occupational identity. Engaging in occupations that contribute to one's identity are what help to give meaning to life. Occupational identity is informed by theories drawn from psychology, sociology, anthropology, and even more recent sociocultural theories. General assumptions related to occupational identity include that the individual is at the core of identity formation, in which they have control over their identity and agency of self is essential. In addition, another assumption is that there is choice in occupation. Individuals have the choice of what will shape their identity, which is largely based on American cultural values that say occupation can be chosen freely rather than out of obligation. Another assumption is of productivity, in that adolescence and early adulthood focuses on creating your occupational identity around the construct of meaningful work. Finally, the general assumption that there are social dimensions influencing the identity formation of an individual through the society they are around and the context from which they come. Occupations that are socially accepted and approved by those around them are often those that are reinforced by the individual. One such example of occupational identity is seen in Kevin Pierce, a world-class professional snowboarder from 2007 to 2009 who would often compete alongside Shaun White. He suffered a severe traumatic brain injury in 2009 while training for the 2010 Winter Olympics, and he had to be airlifted to a hospital. He was in critical condition for a month following his injury and had to stay at a rehabilitation center for several months afterward until he was safe enough to go home. However, the severity of his injuries prevented him from ever being able to return to the sport he loved without risking further injury. This contributed to an earth-shattering loss of occupational identity, which resulted in Kevin Pierce feeling lost and angry for many years. His identity had been rooted in being a snowboarder for so long that he could not fathom a life in which he did not have this outlet. Following a long road to recovery, with the support of his friends and family, Kevin eventually realized his accident would prohibit him from returning to his beloved occupation of snowboarding. Thus, Kevin was left to adopt a new occupational identity. A documentary called The Crash Reel documents his journey to inspire those his discovery of a new occupational identity. Kevin and his brother started Love Your Brain, which is a foundation whose mission is to improve the quality of life of people affected by traumatic brain injuries through programs that build community and foster resilience. Kevin has now come to view his experience as a platform through which he can inspire others and offer education and awareness about the experience of TBI recovery. This has given him a new sense of identity informed by a previously meaningful occupation. Self-identity is recognized as being a comprehensive concept describing the uniqueness of a person and can be best understood as the active and dynamic understanding of self from which people derive interactions between themselves and their environments. Over 72% of brain injury survivors report a change in self-identity after a brain injury, and thus personal goals, values, and attitudes are affected. Kevin's core identity was shaped by his love for snowboarding. He was a brother, son, friend, and competitor. With so much of his life founded in this occupation, Kevin Pierce was responsible for shifting his goals and values to accommodate his new health needs. However, this had to be self-initiated and was rooted in his personhood at the core as an individual. As a construct, self-identity plays a central role in how individuals understand themselves and communicate. Kevin Pierce could not maintain his previous occupational identity following the accident. He had to fight to reinvent himself, desperate to gain autonomy, fulfill former roles, and find unique ways to participate and gain control over the fragmented reality he was now in. Grieving his loss, Kevin not only had to shift his identity from that of a professional snowboarder and athlete, but also his social relationships, functional ability, and other engagement in meaningful occupation. Lacking a beloved occupation contributed to a great emotional distress and feelings of depression as life as he knew it was completely changed. Following the accident, Kevin often doubted his purpose because his mechanism of self-definition could no longer provide the meaning and singularity that had once characterized him as an individual in the past. Similarly, reinventing his occupational self was a unique process determined by his own desired occupational identity. For example, some have fought to be workers, others have had to resume previous hobbies, and have had to modify things previously experienced to fit their new needs. Kevin had to do so with his love for snowboarding. An additional influence on occupational identity is the influence of choice. The freedom Kevin had previously felt to choose activities, roles, and routines that he wanted were severely impacted by his accident. He lost autonomy, physical, emotional, and cognitive changes all severely impacted his ability to gauge an occupation and his ability to feel safe in order to do what he needed to do. Because health and well-being are promoted through purposeful daily choices and activity, Kevin needed to bolster opportunities for choice and individual freedom in any arena possible. Kevin did not choose this accident, but he had a choice in how to respond and how to choose new social, economic, and health and well-being initiatives. Kevin and his family made a choice to look for the good that could come out of a seemingly harmful and purposeless accident. At first, Kevin tried everything he could do to stay involved with the snowboarding community. He tried to compete again, but it was beyond his physical capacity at the time. He also tried to be involved with competitions as a commentator role, but found it too difficult to talk about the beloved sport. He reported a loss of social network due to inability to engage in the previous occupations with a community of peers who were still able to partake in the occupation. Concurrent loss of valued occupations restricted opportunities for socializing that contributed to occupational participation loss. Therefore, social isolation was identified as a contributing factor in the process of occupational identity disruption that added to the threatening of identity continuity. Afraid for his life, his family begged him to give up snowboarding, and Kevin understood the toll that this fear took on his family, so he agreed to stop. Although this transition was tough for Kevin, his family supported him in finding new occupations like yoga and meditation that still allowed him to connect to his body through a different kind of movement. The context in which Kevin was raised and in which he underwent treatment were largely influential in shaping his occupational identity. Kevin's brother dropped everything to be with him during his recovery and often attended his therapy sessions. He helped Kevin's therapist to motivate him through games, which brought out his competitive nature. Many individuals have communicated a feeling of abrupt loss of their former occupational selves when they are no longer able to participate in valued occupations from their previous lives. Reinventing one's occupational identity is also prompted by the need to connect past, present, and future occupational selves. Kevin was able to connect his past love for sports and snowboarding with his present health crisis and future initiative to support other athletes or individuals who may be combating cognitive changes or acute injury. After the TBI, Kevin faced the challenge of rediscovering what a productive lifestyle would look like and what steps he would need to take to reestablish himself. After the documentary The Crash Reel was made, Kevin and his brother founded the nonprofit aimed at educating and empowering others in similar circumstances through yoga, meditation, and mindfulness. He redefined what a productive lifestyle meant for him through his nonprofit, public speaking engagements, and by being an example of resilience, perseverance, and grit. Our appreciation for occupational identity has grown through the synthesis of several resources we've utilized throughout this semester. Through one of our first readings, we learned that a person is defined to some extent by the occupations in which he or she engages. We've built on this foundational knowledge through our example with Kevin Pierce. When his context was altered due to injury, his ability to engage in occupations that contributed to his sense of identity became considerably impaired. As Kevin rebuilt his identity, we saw the delicate interplay between his social supports, ability to choose, and sense of productivity that promoted his recovery. OTs are uniquely poised to facilitate this interplay by helping clients navigate changes in their context through engagement in new occupations or by finding new means to engage in their typical occupations. Occupation-focused rehabilitation can provide opportunities for individuals to pursue their desired occupational identity following disruption to previously meaningful engagement. As a profession, our understanding of this concept truly sets us apart from other practitioners.